Hello everyone, my name is Incoherence and welcome to Showcase, the series in which I buy the shit so you don't have to. Tonight we are taking a look at Frostpunk, an incredibly interesting city builder and horrendously somber survival game from 11-bit studios, who, I should add, were gracious enough to provide this review copy of the game. So in actuality, I did not buy the shit in this instance. Now you may know 11-bit studios for their past title, This War of Mine, which was a bleak survival game set in a war-torn city. The two games are incredibly similar thematically, and I would say hit upon a lot of the same game mechanics. So if you liked this War of Mine, it's highly likely that you will enjoy Frostpunk as well, providing, of course, that you like a good city builder. Now, Frostpunk takes place in a steampunk world with but one twist, rather. The world has begun to cool dramatically. The last hope of mankind revolves around these massive structures, these massive constructs called the generators that burn coal for heat, and it is this structure that our city will be built around. And I gotta say, as we jump into this game, I really like Frostpunk massively. So what we're gonna do is we are going to play, I would say, maybe a good half hour, just like as a new game, and then I've actually got a game later on, a couple hours in, and we will take a look at that as well, just so you can get a better, more rounded opinion of what's going on with this game. So to begin with, you only have one scenario called A New Home. This is the main storyline, the meat of the game. I have actually completed it, and I've thus unlocked additional scenarios. But for our purposes, we are going to start a whole new game, and we're going to watch the cinematic because I love the tone, the world that they've built in Frostpunk, and I want you to love it too. For the love of God, just love this game!
We roam the still, cold world. No horizon in sight. The rulers of old, stripped of pride and glory. It feels as yesterday we were turning the wheels of progress, until the frost stopped it all, suddenly, without a warning. When tides had changed, they changed for all of us, no matter wealth or class. We've lost our world to snow, and with it, our last traces of humanity. We bid farewell to plenty, and for those who remained came the time to adapt. We decided to leave our homes and head north. We roamed for weeks, maybe months, leaving behind all the things we once believed had made us. It was hope that pushed us forward. Slowly, step by step. We knew the cost of our journey, and we paid the price 100 times. Finally, the time has come to build the last city on Earth.
Wow, and there you have it. What an excellent cinematic. I just fucking love that. I don't know what it is about this game, but as soon as I started playing it, I was just immediately immersed and completely addicted to it. I love, I guess, the thematic and storytelling aspects of it, which are just layered on top of a pretty tight city builder. Anyway, as you can see here, this is a little bit of backstory as to what's going on. Our survivors have fled London, and for some reason, they have decided to go to the frozen north. I'm not sure what the reasoning is there, but either way, we have stumbled upon a generator, and here it is, within a massive icy crater. Looks somewhat like the wall from Game of Thrones, and we have found this generator hibernating. It's not working at the moment, so we need to gather some coal to get it working. And this is our first task in the playthrough. So we're going to pause the game just to familiarize ourselves with the UI elements, but I'll obviously talk about them more as we go on. But anyway, in the top you can see here we have a bar with quite a few different elements. Our resources, which are coal, wood, steel, steam cores, raw food, and food rations. Raw food becomes food rations. We have the ability to control the time, of course, and then we have like the passing of time, rather. We can go at a normal pace or speed it up. We've got a clock here because, of course, our citizens only work 10 hours a day. They can work 14 if need be, but people get upset when you do that sort of thing. But there is a day-night cycle, and our citizens will only work certain hours. We've got a temperature gauge here, which we can actually see. We've got like a temperature overlay. It's 20 degrees, negative 20 degrees Celsius everywhere aside from the warm bodies of our 80 citizens. And I have to say, being a Canadian, just recently coming out of the Canadian winter, I very much can identify with this game. And then of course we have a bar here that shows the progression of days. Day 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. We can see at the beginning of day 4, the temperature is going to drop significantly. And we can unpause the game just for the time being. We can see in the bottom right our worker breakdown. This is all of our citizens. In the center we have discontent and hope. Obviously, as we upset people, they will become discontent. We've also got some tutorials that I'm going to ignore for now. And the more hopeful people are, the more they are willing to put up with bullshit, essentially. And here we go. We've got 80 people currently homeless. So our tasks for this day are to stockpile some coal, build some tents, and hopefully survive a little bit longer than we otherwise might. Now, looking around our crater, we can see that we have these piles of material. There are some wood crates that provide wood, steel wreckage that will provide steel, and then we have coal piles here that will provide coal. Essentially, we can just gather from this by hand. And then we have some frozen trees which need a sawmill. We have coal deposits which need a mine, and iron deposits which need a steelworks. So we've got some very basic industry available to us at the moment, in the form of just basically collecting shit by hand. So we are going to assign 15 workers to collect some wood. We're going to need wood to construct buildings, so on and so forth. And we can already see our citizens are just plowing through the snow to reach that wood. But even though they're not physically at the location, they're still generating the wood. So you can imagine in many ways the citizen overlay, like the actual overlay of the graphics, if you want to think about it that way. It's not really relevant to your resource generation. So we're going to collect... actually, no, we're not going to collect any steel at the moment. We are instead going to collect some coal. Now, the way I'm doing this is pretty inefficient. There is actually a better way to do it. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to place a building just to show you the way the building placement is going to work. As you can see, there is some sort of grid on the map. This is our radial grid, obviously radiating from the generator, and this is where we are able to build our buildings. So I'm going to go ahead and place 2 tents. They cost something like 10 wood each, and I think I'm going to build some streets as well. We're going to build a street out to the centermost point of these 3 piles, and probably the same thing here, maybe up by the coal as well. This will just be a more efficient way to gather. So we're going to spend a bit of wood to maybe build to there. And in the construction menu, we're going to go to the resources tab. You can see there's several tabs here: people, health, food, resources, and tech. We're going to go to the resources tab and build a gathering post. Now, every pile of resources within the white circle here of the gathering post is going to be collected by the workers I assign to said gathering post. Now, as far as I can tell, one gathering post is basically as efficient as 15 workers on all 3 of these piles. They're currently collecting 6 wood. If I'm not mistaken, we will be collecting maybe 12 wood per hour. Hard for me to say. We gotta wait for our people to build the gathering post anyway. And it's not technically relevant at this point in time, but the gathering post is much warmer to work at than just basically collecting out exposed to the elements. Eventually our people will become sick the more they are exposed to the cold. But there we go. We've got a gathering post being built slowly. 3 hours until that is done. Basically, the way it works is your people will work at their assigned places of work. They're, you know, maybe it's a kitchen or a hospital, and then there's a couple hours of free time after they're done their shift, and they will eventually go to sleep. But in that free time, that is when your workers will begin to build buildings. If you have unassigned workers or people just laying around as we do, we currently have 35 workers unemployed, they will go and build just to keep themselves busy. So that's what's going on here. But construction can become a problem when you have all of your buildings filled with workers. Now, speaking of workers, you can see here that we have workers and engineers. Well, in essence, they work at the exact same speed, but engineers are required for more, I guess, more specific, more technical positions. So in general, you want to put your workers in positions where they're doing manual labor, and your engineers in positions where they need to do, obviously, specialized stuff. Okay, we're going to build another gathering post over by this coal. We're halfway to our goal of collecting coal. I would prefer to have people working in the gathering post, though. Now, analyzing the numbers here, what do we got? We're actually collecting 4.2 wood per hour and 6 per hour from the wood crate. So I was mistaken. We are actually collecting more wood just by, I would say, brute forcing the pile, if you want to think about it that way. Okay. It's now 6 o'clock, and it's free time. This is what I was talking about before. We've got people who are going to walk out, people who are otherwise collecting wood or crates or whatever. They're going to walk out and start building stuff. Now, the issue here is we are short on coal, but people are no longer working. We will be able to remedy that later. We can pass some laws and whatnot, which, you know what, I think we will probably be looking at very shortly. Okay, we have a housing problem. No roof over our heads. This guy is really, really upset about that, apparently. So upset that he's come to see me personally, and he hasn't had the decency to brush the snow off himself. He's just come completely disheveled. Although, thinking about it, he probably has nowhere to brush the snow off, as he's exposed to the elements, because he's no roof over his head. Alright, Captain, people are understandably concerned about the lack of shelter. That's right, so we need to build some buildings. I will provide shelter for everyone, so we've just constrained ourselves to an additional 6 shelters in the next 2 days, which is really not that much of a problem. I'm going to drop another 2 because we have the wood for it, and here go our people. They're going to start slamming that shit up immediately. What was that noise? Aha, we have another event. Yeah, the generator. The heating is off. People are worried they're going to freeze to death unless we turn this thing on. And luckily, we have 130 coal, so we can actually turn it on. We can turn it on to steam level 1, which is basically just going to add 10 degrees to this this radius here. Eventually, we can add up to 50 degrees of heat. And you saw just then that as the generator began to get up to speed, it actually melted all the snow around it. So we've now got a perfectly cleared area to build our shelters. This guy is just saying that we don't need to agree to all the demands that people put upon us, which is, of course, the truth. We are in essence, the benevolent dictator of Generator City, so, you know, I'm not too concerned about it. Or rather, that's not so informative. If we were to look at our temperature overlay, we can see that the people living in these tents are completely comfortable. People walking about outside of the tents, it's livable. And then everything outside is chilly. Of course, as the temperature drops, it will become cold, very cold, and freezing. And once we get to these levels of temperature, people are going to get ill. They will begin to get frostbite, and that becomes a problem. Now, we have the build menu here, but we've also got the Book of Laws to the right. And this is an incredibly interesting part of Frostpunk. This is how you decide to shape your society. You can basically try to be as benevolent as possible, or you can sort of become authoritarian, dictatorial, immoral in a sense. It's really tempting. It's tempting you to see what your boundaries are. What will you do to survive? For example, we've got a binary choice here. We can begin to produce soup, which basically means we just water down our food. It will make people upset, but it will stretch our resources. Alternatively, we can add sawdust to our food, which will again stretch our resources. People may get sick, but we will have more food, essentially. It's pretty nuts. We have another one here, radical treatment or sustained life. This is the decision between just going balls to the walls and doing radical treatments like amputations and the like to get people out the door of your hospital, or you could go sustained life, which is basically, in essence, you're going to have ill people in your beds, in your hospital indefinitely until you find a way to cure them 100%. Another excellent decision you have to make is the decision between cemeteries and proper burials and corpse disposal, where you just basically throw the bodies into a snow pile to be used later. For example, we can see here organ transplants. At a later date, we can exhume the bodies and use their organs in our hospitals. It's nuts. These are the decisions you need to make to build your society, to ensure your survival. We've also got child labor. So this is a decision to put children into roles where they're considered safe. So maybe they will work in a kitchen, maybe they'll work in a hospital or something like that. Eventually we will be able to put children in all jobs, mining, wood cutting, etc. It's pretty bleak. Alternatively, we can build child shelters, essentially schools it looks like, and they can then become apprentices in our hospitals or our workshops. So I think to begin with, the first law we will pass is emergency shift. Basically, once we sign this law, people are going to be a little upset, and they will be more than upset once we force them to work for 24 hours straight, which is essentially what this law allows us to do. For example, I've just assigned 10 workers to the gathering post. We only have 19 hours, rather, of coal, so I would very much like more coal. So I'm going to have these poor 10 workers gather coal from these piles for the next 24 hours. And holy shit, people really did not like that. 24 hours on the job? Insane! But that's our lot. I hope these shifts are only used for real emergencies, not those fake emergencies that our captain would have us believe are real emergencies. The paranoia already is getting pretty immense. Okay, we're going to continue on our way. Look at that. The people are, oh no, working their ways to the coal piles. They're beginning to mine. I have to say, I really like the way your people cut paths through the snow. And these slowly but surely get filled with snow as time goes on. It's really, really, really impressive. I like the... like, for example, here, we cut these paths only just this morning, and they're beginning to be filled in. It's nuts. I don't know. There's all sorts of little details like that in this game. Oh, shit. People have begun to get sick. The generator hums with reassuring warmth, but we shouldn't take it for granted. If the generator goes down, the city dies. Be mindful of coal reserves. Yes, that's something we'll have to watch for. And now we're going to have to begin collecting food, which is not at all a problem. We currently have 100 raw food, which will feed our people for 1 day. Alternatively, if we build a cookhouse, it will feed our people for 2 days. Essentially, 1 unit of raw food becomes 2 food rations. Your people will eat raw food if there's nothing else. So ideally, we'd like to convert that to rations. Oh man, you can see all of our people are just sleeping on the ground here. Oh, it's really sad. That's why they're getting sick. It's because they're sleeping outside or working for 24 hours straight. Good God. I feel bad now because we've got more than enough coal at this point. Okay, so our people wake up at 5 a.m. They have a few hours of free time and then they will go to work. I think they will actually walk to work at something like 7:30. And they will begin work at 8 a.m. Yeah, you can see here they're waking up at 6, going to work at 8, working until 6, getting to bed at 12. And then we have all sorts of opportunities to mess with shifts and emergency shifts and whatnot. And wow, there's a very detailed tutorial here as well, which I don't need this. I've played Frostpunk well enough, I think, to know most everything. I do know that we're going to have to speed all our way to 8 a.m. so that we can begin collecting wood again. We're going to have these 15 engineers building some tents. Unfortunately, we've placed this road in an odd place, and we can't actually get a nice number of houses in there, so we'll have to deal with that later at some point. But yeah, as time goes on, we're going to want to build more houses. Eventually, we're going to have to build a hospital to deal with these 3 sick people. But to begin with, we're going to have to build both a hunter's hut and a cookhouse. I think, let's see, a hunter's hut is 20 wood and the cookhouse is 20 wood. So we're going to need a fair amount of wood. And you know what? We're going to put these last 15 engineers towards collecting that wood. The more wood we have, the more shit we can build. Eventually, once the day is done, I guess. Now, since the hunter's huts don't necessarily need heat, I'm going to put them outside the generator zone. I would rather heat homes than workplaces. Eventually later we can heat workplaces on an individual basis, whereas homes are only heated with area effect type things like the generator or smaller generators we build. Not to mention that you can see here our hunter's hut has 2 building insulation. I think our tents have 1 building insulation. So these things are a little more resilient than our houses. Now I'm going to build the cookhouse just opposite of the hut. We can see that no one is currently working at building these because, as I've mentioned before, they are busy collecting crates. They're busy collecting steel and the like. So we basically just need to pass the time until the end of the day. Another 3 hours until that has happened. And we can actually introduce a new law already. Now, I think for the sake of this small scenario we're playing, I'm actually going to be quite nice to children. Okay, I'm going to build child shelters. So this will unlock child shelters, rather, which are basically schools. Hope will rise, and once we have enough buildings to house the children, people will be more hopeful. Unfortunately, after having signed this law, we have basically promised to build that shelter. So we'll have to do that, I think, after we... Well, no, we have the material. We can build this all right now. I think I will build... You know what? We could build the child shelter right here. But I would actually prefer not to because... Once again, I think the insulation in the shelter is better than our schools. We're going to go right here, okay? We're eventually going to have to build a street out to this area. Like so. Wood crates depleted. Where? Okay, so this pile of crates has been depleted. We now have 15 free workers that are probably going to go build. This pile still has 50 units left. You can see here it's ticking down. Much the same story with the steel. slowly but surely it will tick down. And I think I'm going to continue placing tents as well. We need another 3 buildings. And look at that. We've basically filled the inner ring here, which is excellent. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, we can probably put a hospital in here too. We have an awkward amount of space left over. I kind of wonder what can we put in there. Maybe a workshop? A workshop being the building where you research technology. We're going to have to build one of these pretty soon, but instead I'm going to place it, I think, just opposite of the child shelter, maybe under tech, rather. There it is. Should we put it here? Should we put it there? I think we'll put it right next to that child shelter, okay? And we're going to build a road along the backside just to connect those buildings up. Every building that you build in Frostpunk needs a street connection to the main hub. That is the generator. We can also remove roads, like I'm going to do behind this resource depot, or rather these stockpiles. Now, as far as I'm aware, this and the generator are the only buildings you can't actually demolish. You can't move this stockpile somewhere out of the way. Like, ideally, I would take this out and put another 2 houses in its place, because the stockpile doesn't need to be heated, right? It's just coal, wood, steel. You would probably prefer to have your food cold, I would think. You would want it freezing. But instead, you are basically unable to remove that. Much the same story with the generator. Okay, looks like our hunter's hut has been built. We're going to put 15 workers to work in that hut. Our cookhouse has also just been completed, and annoyingly, I've put it the wrong way around. Maybe we'll have to remedy that, I don't know. People from our convoy, with basic resources secured for now, we can try to rescue the people we left behind. So, in the preamble to this scenario, they mentioned that our convoy had been split by a storm. So there is actually a second level to Frostpunk, and it is sort of like an overworld site-based map, and we can send scouts to the sites, and then it's sort of like an event you have to deal with. And we will probably do that and then take a look at the gameplay I have that's a couple hours in. There we go. We've built the child shelter. We've completed our promise, and hope has risen. Look at that. Every kid has a place in a child shelter. Nice. Hope is pretty high at the moment. Discontent is pretty low, and it will drop even lower once we have built these tents. Because obviously people are upset. They don't have a home. They don't have a place to rest their wee head, and nowhere to eat their chili meat that we're gonna have to start cooking them. Okay, clearly something's going on with this road. It's yellow. Why is that? Apparently we don't have a proper connection to the main street over here. I'm not sure why that is. That is a little bit annoying. I'm gonna have to diagnose this by tearing some of it up, I guess. Like that. And then replacing it. Like that. Oh, we've done it. Okay. Eventually this road will be hooked up. Now, the workshop is one of the first buildings that we're going to run into that actually needs engineers. Hospital being another one. Currently, we've got our 15 engineers collecting these wood crates. We're going to... Whoop. Okay, we've built enough shelters for everyone. And once again, hope is going to rise. Rising even higher. Discontent is going to drop somewhat, I suppose. And what was I going to do? Oh yes, I was going to have the engineers cease operations, and instead we're going to put some of them in the workshop. And we've now unlocked the technology tree. Excellent. So as you can see, there are 4 tabs, each with 5, 6 levels of technology that you have to work your way through. On the left here, we are able to unlock them with massive amounts of resources. 50 wood just to unlock the next level of tech. To begin with, though, we are going to have to, I think, research faster gathering. This will obviously help us collect those raw resources. Our objective at the moment is to research and build the beacon. This beacon will allow us to venture outside of Generator City and out into the... they call it the Frost Land or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. But that is, of course, our objective. We're going to probably just research some other junk beforehand. Oh, look at this. Our hunters are continuing outside of the crater to hunt some animals. We've got Jonathan Helm here, Lewis Ward, Andrew North, which is oddly fitting considering our location, Tom Mill, not oddly fitting considering his work. You would prefer that he was like working in a sawmill, is all I'm saying. And then Edith Trevitt. Yeah, when the end of the world is coming, we really don't discriminate on a sex basis. If you're a woman, you can be a hunter, you can be a carpenter. We don't give a shit. Everyone's gonna freeze to death if we're not careful. Okay, so we need some workers for the cookhouse. Unfortunately, all we have are engineers. I'm gonna throw 5 engineers into the cookhouse for the time being. And they will begin to convert these rations, or rather the raw food, into rations as they begin the workday. I think our hunters post looks like they bring in 15 raw food a day. At the cookhouse, they turn 4 food rations, or rather 2 raw food into 4 food rations. So essentially, we are collecting 30 rations per day. Now, each of our citizens requires a ration per day. So essentially, we're going to need 80 rations per day. It's kind of nuts. So we're going to have to build some additional hunters' huts at some point. For the time being, we're going to have to begin collecting wood. Oh, yeah, see, the game wants me to research something, but unfortunately, I don't have the resources to do it. Jeez, get off my fucking back. I am going to stop collecting this coal pile. We have the gathering post over here that is doing all the work. We've got 5 days of coal. Look at that. And also, our storage is very nearly full, so this is a bit of a waste. We're collecting 240 coal per day, whilst we are burning 144. So we're doing pretty good. Instead, I think we will probably build another hunter's hut rather, after we've researched what we need to research. So I'm going to start with faster gathering. That will obviously get all of these piles cleared up as time goes on. We can pass a new law. And I think we will now go for apprenticeship. So our children are not going to be working in the mines, but they will be working underfoot beside our doctors, beside our engineers in the workshop. Essentially, this is a 20% efficiency bonus to either your healthcare industry or your technology industry. And you know what? I'm going to boost our research. There's a lot of technology that boosts our healthcare later on, but for now, we're just going to boost the efficiency of the workshop. So currently we are at 100% efficient. Oh, look at that. We just got the 20% bonus from the kids helping out. Nice. So you can see here that we've made a pretty ethical, a pretty moral decision. And we now are going to be training our children, educating them instead of having them potentially die, you know, sawing down trees and the like. Okay, a note of thanks. This beleaguered mother just wants to thank us. Because, apparently back in London, it was only the wealthy that didn't have to send their kids to work. Holy shit. So this is going to raise hope. Already, we are better than the old world. Family torn apart. Sir, a woman came forward after we built the workshop. Yes. So she has volunteered to search for the remains of our convoy, because the rest of her family is apparently missing. Oh man, what a terrible place. What a terrible position to be in. Okay, currently we have sick people, 6 of them to be exact. So I am going to save up some wood to build that hospital, and then we will deal with the food issue. Currently we've got at least 2 days of food saved up. So we can certainly spare a little bit of time to build a medical post. Now, I am going to put it in the heat zone, and maybe we'll have to move it later. I'm not sure. It's a pretty big deal to have your hospitals properly heated. You know, you don't want sick people just dying, freezing to death in the beds, etc., etc. It appears that our coal storage is nearing capacity. We're going to have issues with our gathering. What can we research now? The beacon is going to cost us 10 wood. Unfortunately, once again, we are short on wood. Looks like most everything we are able to research needs wood, and it's obviously the end of the day, which is unfortunate. Very unfortunate. The following morning, it's now night, the temperature is going to drop 20 degrees to -40, which is, fuck me, so goddamn cold. I'm surprised that people aren't just dying all the goddamn time. You know, it's nuts. Okay, we have 5 engineers available. They are going to be working in the hospital. We've immediately admitted 5 patients, 5 of 5. And they are going to take, I think, roughly a day or two to be treated. Obviously, while they're being treated, they're not able to work. Looks like one person is gravely sick. So this medical post is unfortunately unable to treat people who are gravely sick. That's like, you're looking at a terminal illness. So this is where our laws really come into play. If someone is gravely sick, we can choose to go the radical treatment route, which basically allows us to treat the ill, the gravely ill, in medical posts, but there is a good chance that they'll be left as amputees. And once again, amputees cannot work unless, of course, we build them prosthetics, which is further down the book of laws. We also need to house the amputees. It's a whole thing, so this is a pretty radical way to go, hence the name. Alternatively, we can go the sustained life route, which basically just means that the gravely ill will continue to stay in our beds in the medical posts until we find a better solution to the issue. A more advanced hospital, perhaps a specific building to house them, etc. etc. Okay, brace yourselves, guys. Grab your ass because it's about to get very cold. Let's get to work. We can't let up now, says Andrew North as he walks into a fucking... oh, just a blast of cold air that chills him to his wee bones. -40 degrees, my god. Okay, people, get to work. I need wood desperately. There we go. We've got our 10 wood. Let's research the beacon. There it is. Holy shit. What else are we going to do? We really need... oh no, another pile of wood crates has become depleted. We're going to be collecting this steel very soon as well. And there we go. This gathering post no longer has anything to gather. We're going to dismantle the building. You can see here that anything above -20 degrees affects our buildings. We now have a -2 malice to our temperature in the gathering post. This is now a very cold, or rather a cold building to work in. Now, if people were just working at the pile, it instead would be very cold. So you can see what I was talking about earlier, where it's much better to work from a gathering post than it is to just work out in the elements. But there we go. We've dismantled this gathering post, or rather we are in the process of doing that. That's going to give us a little bit of wood, probably just enough to build our hunter's hut, maybe? Unsure. Or maybe it would be better for us to build a gathering post over here, because we're still gonna need to gather some wood. That's for sure. Okay, there we go. It's now torn apart. We're gonna leave the street as it is. It's probably going to lead to some other buildings once we get down that path. Looks like our cookhouse is so cold that we can no longer run it. So we're gonna have to solve this with the power of technology. Technology, knowledge. Which will happen eventually. For the time being, we're just going to continue researching the beacon, obviously. Okay, we have hit our max capacity in terms of coal storage. So we can shut down the gathering post, unassign all the workers until we need them again. Currently 35 unemployed workers. you know what? Once we get the wood, I would not at all be opposed to building another gathering post. But I'm fairly certain we're going to need quite a few resources to build the beacon once it's completed. Now, yeah, to build the beacon, we are going to need 20 wood and 35 steel. Luckily enough, we have tons of steel. We're really struggling on the wood front, though. We need wood for everything. Buildings, technology. Eventually, once we are able to build scout units, they require wood. Pretty bad. Okay, so our generator is still very, very basic. Obviously, under the heating tab, we can begin to upgrade the generator. But for the time being, the people that are living in these tents, they're currently chilly. Okay, when they're sleeping, they're chilly. When they're eating, they're chilly. When they're shitting, they're chilly. It's not an ideal situation. So, in essence, we would have to either upgrade our generator to put out more heat, or upgrade our buildings to increase insulation, so as to obviously combat the cold, which is not necessarily a viable option at this current juncture. And once again, our people are not gathering wood that we so desperately need. We can introduce a new law, and I'm not sure what kind of laws we want at the moment. You know what? I'm kind of feeling like, once again, we're going to go the ethical route. I'm going to go sustain life. So if anyone who is gravely ill is just going to endlessly occupy one of our beds. As Gilbert Godfrey. Why take up all the beds with these goners? Gilbert Godfrey is very much opposed to the idea of sustaining life, I guess. He would prefer we cut off limbs. But holy shit, you can see here, the houses are chilly, and so our people are just getting sick at an alarming rate. It's very, very bad. Although it looks like we just treated a bunch of people. Nice, and another will be treated in 4 hours. Okay, here come the people, going about their day. Get to work, please. I need the wood. I need it. Okay, first we're going to research heaters. This allows us to toggle on heaters in workplaces, which will then allow us to get this cookhouse up and running, which we're going to need because our rations are getting pretty low. We're also going to need that hunter's hut, because again, our rations are getting pretty low. So we're going to build a street to the backside. We have 0 wood, basically. Let's pass some time, I guess. Build that street, as I mentioned. Blam! Like so. Excellent. So we've got our hunter's hut going up. We've got the people to work it. Slam. We've now got tons of food coming in. We're, what is it, 30 raw food coming in, which is still not going to cover our population. So I think if we go to health and shelter, we can see that there is an upgrade to our hunter's hut, which will allow them to collect 20 raw food per day, which will be exactly what we need to feed our people. So that's a pretty good use of our resources. We're going to need 25 wood to build that beacon. You know what? I'm going to pass a law. I'm going to have an extended shift. So instead of having people work 24 hours, we can instead have them work 14 hours. The standard workday being 10 hours, of course. And this is going to piss people off, okay? Passing the law is going to piss people off. Actually utilizing the law is going to piss people off. But we really need wood. Okay, so these people have collected just what we need. Excellent. To build that beacon. And you know what? I think we're going to build it all the way out here. At the edge of history. No, actually, you know what? We're going to build it right here. There we go. So once people get that slammed down, we can see the overworld. And I think then we will switch, as I've mentioned before, to that other playthrough that I've currently got going. Okay, we are able now to turn the heater on in the cookhouse, which will again allow it to become operational. Although I've just realized that the temperature will be rising in the morning, so that was a bit of a waste. I'm sure once the temperature rises that the cookhouse will operate just fine. Look at this. Beacon built. We're no longer lost and blind. Check this shit out. Here comes a massive fucking balloon, which is going to allow us to peek our little tiny heads up outside of our desolate and sad crater. There it goes. Oh, it's also got like a searchlight sort of thing. Well, not searchlight, but like a lighthouse. It's got like a lighthouse thing going on, which is excellent. And bam. This is our overworld. So we can create scout units for 40 wood, and they will then be able to travel around to check out these locations. For example, we have a crash site here. Several wrecked vehicles, no signs of life. We have a lost expedition. This is apparently where the people from our convoy are, so we really have to send a scout team out to meet those people. Ready to search. People cheer as the giant observation balloon soars above the city. Holy shit! It's so fucking beautiful! This is a real feat. Everyone feels proud of the work they've done to make it happen. Even the stupid guy that has to cook the shit. He's really proud. He's looking out the kitchen window like, oh, cool, blimey. Okay, we needed a win. And we've done it. Nice. We've got the beacon. We just now have to wait for the workday to begin. And once again, people are getting ridiculously sick. I've just realized we are able to put our generator into overdrive, which will increase the temperature output by 1. Unfortunately, we have a stress level here. The longer we have the overdrive on, the higher the stress gets. Potentially, it can explode. If we hit 100% stress, the generator will explode, ending your game. Okay, so this is sort of like an emergency thing to do, and I probably should have been using it, but I was asleep at the wheel. We are once again going to... Look at that. It's begun to warm up. It's now only -30. Wow. We're going to assign people once again to that gathering post to collect our coal. We still need wood. We need 40 wood in order to... Oh, shit. That gathering post has just immediately depleted our coal. So we're going to have to get a little creative, probably build a road, or a street rather, out to this other pile, like so. We could probably do without the gathering post until we've created that scout team anyway. But, you know what? I think now's a perfect time to switch over to the other campaign I have going on. It's a couple hours in. I want to say it's like 4 hours in. So if you don't want to see spoilers, as there is a story, then you really should tune out now and buy the game if you have enjoyed it to this point. Otherwise, please stick around, because there's a completely different sort of thing going on, and I will see you in just a moment. Alright everyone, welcome back. This is the early mid-game, I would say. You could call it like Act 2. There's an entirely new objective that we're going to have to deal with for the next little bit here. And this is it, okay? Once we click on this event, all sorts of shit is going to go on. The unconvinced want to leave. Essentially, in the recent past, in the past day, I would say, an event has occurred that has spooked people to such a degree that they want to run back to London. Okay? So I now have to convince the Londoners, these are the people that want to leave, I have to convince them to stay. Okay, so 14 people have decided they want to leave, and every day, every morning, people are going to join the Londoners. So, in order to dissuade people from leaving, I need to raise hope. Now, an interesting thing has occurred, which is we have gained an additional book of laws. And the developers of Frostpunk, they've made this a very interesting dichotomy. You are presented with a choice, and that choice is that you must go a route that follows order and purpose, or you must follow spirituality and religion, faith. You will use faith or order to increase hope. In this particular case, I have chosen to go purpose. Because in this playthrough, I have gone the complete opposite of every choice we made previously. So I am using child labor. People, like children rather, are working in my kitchens. I've got radical treatment. We're amputating people. I've got corpse disposal. People, bodies, more accurately, are being disposed mercilessly in the snow. So I am playing as a complete asshole authoritarian in this playthrough. Just to give you a little bit of variation. And you know what? We've actually got scout teams out. So I think we'll take a brief look at our overworld. So here we go. We've got some survivors making their way back to the city. We've got our scout team heading towards... where are you guys going? Towards Freshwater Springs, maybe? Scouts number 1 heading to Freshwater Springs. We've got a group of scouts at Winterhome, which was a previous city that has obviously failed. They've a bunch of resources, wood, food, coal, and steam cores. They're going to have to head back to the city, like so. So it's going to take these guys 1 day to return. It's going to take these guys 14 hours to arrive at Freshwater Springs. So that is going to occur as we are passing time in our city. Now, oh god, what is this? People join the Londoners. Yeah, our hope is very, very low. So the number has jumped to 27 people. 27 of 180 people want to go back to London, essentially. Now, our population is pretty large because we found survivors out in the Frostland. We've brought them back to the city, and we've integrated them into our society. Let's see. I think at the moment I've got many, many sawmills. I've got 3 sawmills that are cutting the frozen trees within their radius. I've got a hothouse, which is essentially a greenhouse producing 3 raw food per hour. I've got a public house, basically a pub, okay? And people are drinking their problems away. What else have we got going on? We've now got a coal thumper, which is bringing coal to the surface for our people working at the gathering posts to gather. Here's the pile. We've got steelworks, mining ore underground and smelting it into steel, obviously. And then, most interestingly, we have an automaton by the name of the Royal Bostoner. Now, we found this automaton out in the Frostland. He's returned to our city to assist. Essentially, the automaton will work in most industry 24 hours a day with a base efficiency of 60%. So right now, if we were to compare the automaton versus our regular steelworks, 10 people working 10 hours a day are producing 40 steel. Our automaton working around the clock is producing 57 steel. So already they're more efficient, but we can boost the efficiency of both. So really, after a while, it's sort of like, well, there's pros to this, there's cons to that, but ultimately the automatons come out in the end. Just because you don't have to heat anything. The automatons do not care how cold it is. People do, unfortunately. Now we've got a nice animation here where the automaton is refueling on one of our steam hubs, which is a smaller generator we can build that will obviously radiate the heat that is being produced by the regular generator. And then, of course, we've got like a second little residential area surrounding that steam hub. All of our houses surrounding the main generator are now bunk houses, so that is one level of insulation above the tents we previously built. Oh shit. Kind of looks like we no longer have any need to produce wood because we have 0 storage. And I'm kind of wondering, where should we put these workers instead? We currently have 6 workers, 6 engineers, and 3 children ready to work. But it looks to me like nobody needs the labor, so they're just going to bum around a bit, I guess. What is this? Another sawmill. So we've got 2 sawmills currently offline. We have a steam hub currently offline. And you know what? Our workshops are currently offline. So we're going to have to take a look at our technology. We have just researched the outpost depot which is interesting. We'll take a look at that in a moment. I think what we need at the moment is probably hunting tactics, perhaps. Actually, you know what? We should be going for the infirmary. The infirmary is a better hospital, and it will take in more patients, treat them faster, so on and so forth. So we're going to go that route. Now, you may notice that I have 4 workshops rather. This is giving us maximum efficiency. Or rather, research rate, maximum research rate. Our greatest potential research rate is 160. 1 workshop gives you 100%. I think 2 workshops gives you 130, 140, 160, something like that. I'm not sure how it works exactly, but it's diminishing returns until you hit a max of 4 workshops. Anything above and beyond that is just a waste of labor. A waste of labor. Okay, so we are currently getting raw food from the hothouse. If we go to the cookhouse, we can see that we are producing 225 rations per day. We're making soup, of course we are, because I'm a bit of an asshole. I don't really care about my citizens that much as long as we survive. That's kind of how I'm playing it. Amazing. Okay, we have researched the infirmary, and we are now able to build it. Unfortunately, we need a steam core, which is going to arrive in 16 hours. We also unlocked the outpost depot, which is like a big elevator outside of the crater. And you know what? I'm going to build it. I'm going to build that. I'm going to build the street from the beacon over to the outpost depot. And this is very similar to the beacon in that you can create outpost teams like the scouts, and you can build outposts in very rare locations. For example, we found a coal mine that will allow us to get deliveries of 800 coal every day. We found wood in Winterhome, which will give us 150 wood every day. There are other locations that can be found, but in essence, those outposts are cities. Well, they're more like they just generate resources, and you don't have to, wait on them at all. You don't have to watch them, babysit them, if you will. Looks like our scout unit has reached freshwater springs. Several pools are kept from freezing by a hot spring deep underground. Patches of hardy lichens cling to the bare rock at their edges. It looks like a good place for a hideout. Let's explore the freshwater springs. Oh man, degenerated but alive. Near the freshwater springs, we met some refugees from Winterhome. Okay. So we can choose to escort the survivors to the city. We can have them fend for themselves, send them to the city, or we could just leave them entirely. I'm going to send the survivors. I'm not particularly concerned about if they die along the way. I just want my scouts to remain productive, okay? Oh man. You know what? Let's take a brief look at our hope. Currently, the way that we are going to raise our hope, considering that we've just adopted a policy of order, is we're going to build neighborhood watches, essentially. So we need to get as many homes as we can within the sphere of influence, or rather the radius of influence, diameter of influence more correctly, I guess, that these watchtowers produce. So we can slam down one here. That's going to get half the houses in the center of town. I'm going to dismantle a tent here and another one here. And we are now going to be able to put watchtowers in those places, which will cover probably most every house in the city. And that's going to raise hope over time. And yeah, that's kind of our route at the moment. Slowly but surely, we sort of slip into a fascistic authoritarian state, and it's the developers of Frostpunk asking you, how far will you go in order to ensure the survival of your people? It's very, very interesting. And the way they do it, it's sort of like a boiling frog scenario, where every incremental step doesn't seem like a big deal at the moment, but when you look at the grand scheme of things, where you began is significantly different from where you ended up. It's sort of like a descent into hell, really. much the same story if you go faith. You begin with temples and shrines and churches, and you have mass, and then eventually over time you sort of become a pope figure, and then after a while your word is the word of God, essentially. It's pretty fucking crazy. You have religious police. It's a whole thing. Okay, so we need a few people to staff these watchtowers. Unfortunately, we are kind of running low on labor at the moment. Oh, there we go. Look at that. We raised our hope, rather. You know what? I think in terms of technology, I'm going to research hunting tactics. That means we will free up a bunch of people that can now work at our watchtowers, or really wherever we need them to work. What else is going on at the moment? What do we need to do? We need to let people rest, apparently. Apparently I was whipping people into a frenzy because I was having them work 14-hour shifts. I don't recall that happening. As is the general MO of some sort of authoritarian figure. Okay, we have begun to slow the gain of Londoners. We still have 13 days to prevent these guys from leaving. Okay, scouts number 2 have returned. They brought wood, food, coal, and steam cores, which is going to allow us to build that infirmary I mentioned earlier. I'm not sure where we want to put it, though. I think maybe I would like to put it in a zone that can be heated. We have a steam hub here and another one here. You know what? We're going to put the infirmary. Beside the steam hub, there's some houses here. We're going to have the steam hub actually on. Let's watch as it melts all the snow from the buildings around it. I have to unpause it first, but there we go. It's slowly melting the snow on the ground. It's melting the snow on the buildings. It's amazing. And we're going to have that running around the clock because we're actually going to start another little residential section here. We do need that tower, obviously. And we're going to build some tents. We are going to be seeing some survivors in the next 10 hours. So we need... we have 100 vacant beds for some reason. I can't quite say why that is. Maybe I've just gone a little nuts on the building, but regardless, we're going to throw some more houses down just to justify that steam hub. Okay, we currently have 1 amputee, 10 people being treated. Once we slap down the infirmary, rather, we will then be able to treat many more, but we're going to need the workers to replace them. Let's see. We now have 15 workers, which are going to go into the towers because we need the engineers to run the infirmary. There we go. Let's see, where are our other towers? This one apparently has some sort of event. Timely intervention. Sir, a child climbed the generator, slipped and fell. Apparently one of our neighborhood watch members caught the child. So, they're trying to say, like, oh, the neighborhood watch guys are actually doing good. They're really improving the neighborhood. Slowly they morph into guards and authoritarian police. It's crazy. How many engineers do we have? 4. Okay, we still don't have enough engineers to staff the hospital, so we're gonna have to pull them away from the sawmill. There we go. Boom. The infirmary is now staffed fully. Apparently 2 of our workers are sick, which is incredibly ironic. We're also going to put some workers into this watchtower. It appears that almost all of our people live near watchtowers, rather, so they're going to start gaining hope. We are now going to research, I think, maybe the steam steelworks. This will allow us to upgrade our steel production. In terms of laws, we really need to get going on this purpose thing. We got to raise hope, and pronto mundo. We are going to begin gathering in the morning to increase our hope. There we go. Nice. So slowly but surely, it's increasing. But holy shit, we've got a ton of coal, we've got a ton of wood. We are about maxed out in terms of food rations, so we're going to have to place some more resource depots just to allow us to store all this junk that we're mining. We're dredging out of the ground. I am going to put the food... You know what? We're going to put it... let's see. If I were to build another hothouse, I would probably put it... You know what? Right beside the previous one. But we'll rotate it so it doesn't look shitty. And I will have a road on the back side of it. And that is where I will put my resource depots. We're going to start storing some food behind the hothouse here. I like hothouses. They produce raw food throughout the day. They're very efficient. They just require heat. And we also need somewhere to store these food rations. I would like to have a couple days worth of rations, you know, just in case something catastrophic happens. Okay, you know what? Let's play until the end of day 16. That sounds like a fun time. There we go. Food rations. Twice over. This one is storing wood. I would like to maybe move... Oh, what is this? Survivors reached the city. Sir, a group of survivors has reached the city. I see. We now have 200 citizens. Holy shit. 220, more accurately. We're going to put 3 children working in the hothouse. And maybe... a couple engineers and some workers. Something like that. One more worker than an engineer. There we are. We've now got 2 hothouses producing how much food per day? We're producing 270 rations per day. Wow. Okay, it's about to get a little bit colder. We may have to bump up the heat generation a little bit. Looks like one of our scout teams has reached the frozen grove. Oh no, buried shame. Poking around the trees marked with crosses, we found shallow graves under each of them. Holy shit. The dead bodies lack most of the bigger muscles, and some bones bear signs of a cutting tool. It's fucking cannibals. The freshwater spring survivors apparently were disgusting cannibals. So we're gonna take some wood and head on over to the snow cliff. Nice. Our other scout team is going to head to the American camp. There they are. And you know what? We're going to head over to the outpost depot, which has now been built. We're going to recruit a team, like so. We're going to send them to collect coal. There you go. So it looks like in 12 hours they will arrive. We will establish an outpost, and then from then on they will provide us 800 coal every day, which is pretty nuts, considering we will soon be burning... Well, 600 per day. Looks like we're collecting 500. We're burning 600. Once we establish that outpost, we will soon be getting 1,300 coal, more than double our daily expenditure per day, which is great. Okay, so I have turned the generator onto steam level 2, which has increased the heat within its area by another additional level. We're going to have to research... heat zone. We can extend the range with which the generator can be effective. You know, we can extend it out to the second row of buildings. We just have to pass the time, get the tech done, and then it's a cakewalk from there. But holy shit, it's negative 40. We're gonna have to warm up the hothouse. Where else would we like to warm up? Maybe the steelworks, the thumper, the gathering posts. Generally, anywhere anyone's working, we kind of want it chilly rather than completely cold, because people will begin to get sick, straining our already strained healthcare system. Now, it looks like we need some streets over here. Let's just slam them down like that. Once we begin to work through these people who are still sick, I think we can probably demolish the medical post and just rely entirely on the infirmary. That will free up some engineers. Now, we still have some tents stuck in the inner circle. I'm going to replace them with bunkhouses. As you can see, we can just drop them right over top of the tents. No problem. New law can be passed. Let's see, adaptation. Do we want child labor in all jobs? I think we certainly fucking do. There we go. Okay, so it looks like all of our... Oh shit, that really fucked up our... Shit, that was a bad idea. That fucked our hope significantly. And it wasn't even worth it because all of our children are working anyway. Oh no. My bad. Okay, as one of our final acts in this video, we are going to build a steam steelworks. Once again, we can just drop it right over top of that previous building. That's going to increase our output of steel, which you can see is probably one of our slower producing resources. We don't have much of it, and we need a lot of it as we descend down the tech tree. 10 steel here, 20, it becomes like 30, 50, 60, something like that. But anyway, we're going to increase the range of our generator, like so. And you know what? Our outpost team has arrived, and we can build the outpost. There it is. Boom, we will slowly but surely start receiving coal. In 12 hours, we will receive 800 coal, and we really need the facilities to house this coal. Holy shit. We currently have a couple... Actually, you know what? We're going to change this to coal, like so, and build another resource depot right behind it, like so. Nice. Things are progressing nicely. What do we have? 11 workers. Do we have any engineers that need to be elsewhere? Let's see. I don't think so. We're doing pretty well on the labor front. Although having 20 people standing around not doing much of anything is a little bit annoying. So I think I would like... what shall we do? You know what we're going to do? We're going to pull the automaton off of the steelworks. We're going to heat it, and we're going to throw a few people in the steelworks. And I'm going to have the automaton collect coal around the clock. Excellent. Excellent day. Okay, so it is close to the end of day 16. We're only 2 weeks into the game, and we have barely scratched the surface. I still think we're like early mid-game. I would say day 25, that's like mid-game, something like that. That's when shit starts to get crazy. Anyway, we have to end the video because this one is getting a little long in the tooth. So thank you everyone for joining me in this episode of Showcase. If you are interested in purchasing Frostpunk, please check the description down below. There will be links to Steam. Also, please check out the developers, 11-Bit Studios. They did a phenomenal job on this game. And I have to say, I may very well record a series on it because I just love it that much. Anyway, everyone, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like, leave a comment. As always, my name is Incoherence. You guys are awesome, and I will see you all later.